right? So they're in their physical space. And so every time they're around that person, they are feeling some of those feelings we talked about because they're just not feeling safe. I had a client whose grandchild has a disability and it makes him act out, and she had some trauma in her past. So every time he gets very physical in her space, she gets these feelings that come up. She loves him to pieces, but it is an issue that she's dealing with because of how he shows up and what his needs are. But it also means pretty much for everyone that there's some expectations involved. And so today we're really going to focus on the expectation part, because I work with my clients individually to discover what their specific trigger is or what their specific core need is that they need to be met. And that takes a lot more time than we have today. And it's very individual. So today everybody has expectations. I mean, if you're human, you have expectations. So expectations are, what people believe should happen as a result of what they think, what they say, or what they plan. And they are unspoken wants often that set up disappointment when they're not fulfilled. They often breed fear and discontent. Unfulfilled expectations really are the catalyst for acting out or for having self-pity. Woe is me. Why does this always happen to me? Why can't I get this done? Or some type of victimization. And sometimes anger stems from it when it really triggers one of our fears. Expectations can be identified also by future-centered behaviors. So having some type of anxiety about, is the PowerPoint going to come up? Because I expected that I would have my PowerPoint, right? Or is there some anger, or it could be fear or regret about the past. So when you have an expectation of how things should go or how things should have gone, you're not in the present moment. And often it's not until after we start having the feelings that I talked about that the light bulb goes on, like, oh my goodness, I had some type of expectation. It's not like you walk around unless you practice realizing it early on and do some proactive behaviors to work through it, like I just did when the PowerPoint didn't come up, okay? That could really throw someone off. So there are some tools that you can begin to recognize when that's happening sooner, but for the average person that hasn't done this type of work, it's not going to be until they feel those feelings. And then they're going to be able to look back and say, I must have had some type of expectation because I'm frustrated or I'm angry or I'm mad at God or whatever it is. So another behavior for expect-driven people is that they stick to a goal no matter what, right? They're going to get that goal done no matter how frustrating it gets or how much painful it is to do it. And that's really because achievement of the goal becomes the priority because they think that it's tied to their worth or their value. And the expectations also has a disempowering language. And I think I have some further slides about language. Yes, thank you. Very good. So I put some words up here, language of expectations. If you find, and once you know this, and you may already have heard this, but once you know this, you can't put it back in the box, if you're self-aware. So as you're walking around interacting with people, if you find yourself saying supposed to, should, need to, or using the word but, because what do they say about the word but, right? Everything you said before the word but gets negated, right? I love you, but, I want to marry you, but, or you're a great employee, but. That just basically said everything before the but is no longer. And fear-based future as we talked about, it's not so much words, but focusing on the future or regretting the past. Those are any language that has you thinking that way. It could be other words. So, yeah, because I think I covered those. Okay, so what can we do about expectations? Right? Everybody has them. One major thing we can do is use the anecdote to expectations, which is intentions. The way that I suggest through, the training that I've had, and it's worked for me, and if you want to write this down, this would be something to reflect on later, is an expectation starts off by saying, I am willing to practice. Okay, there's two key words with that, willing and practice. Willing means that you're open, that you're giving your will toward it, right? And practice means what? You don't have to be perfect at it, right? You don't have to be void of expectations or fall off the boat. What do they say? The wagon, like with a diet, for example. So if your expectation is that you should be healthier, your intention could be something like, I'm willing to practice eating one healthy meal a day. And I really was specific about that because it's easier to have an intention for something very specific. So, or I'm willing to practice being aware of what I'm eating. That's a small step. And the fact that you're willing to just practice it means that you can have success and build on that confidence and take a further step and a further step. So intentions means that we are a commitment versus the results. We're committed to doing something. We're not tied to the results. I mean, I prepared a lot of, I have so much material. My issue with, that I had with getting ready for today was how do I make it just 20, 25? Like, what pieces do I pick? So I spent a lot of time putting this together. So I certainly had the expectation that I was going to come in and I know my subject, I've worked hard on it, I have my PowerPoint ready and, great audience and it's going to be great. If I were focused on that result, if that was in my mind and solidified as the end of whether I was successful or not, I got a lot of pushback today, right? So instead, I'm committed to being present. I'm committed to sharing what I know, and I'm committed to doing the best I can in the situation. So you see, I'm using myself as an example, but you should see the shift. I could certainly leave here if I was tied to that expectation of how things were going to be, disappointed, frustrated. Why didn't I get here early? Like blaming myself, a whole bunch of things, which I could spend a long time talking about. But instead, shifting over to the expectation is really what's going to give you the confidence to do more and more of this. So here are some of the words of expectation versus intention. I gave you my example, but you can see here what you want to practice. And again, that's that word practice. Doesn't mean you're going to be perfect at it. Just practice eliminating the words like supposed to, should. Somebody, this hit home for me, and I don't know why. I think it's because I did it a lot when my kids were little. So I would be busy doing something, and then it would be time to have the kids be picked up at an event. And I would say in my head, I need to leave. I should be leaving now. I need to leave. Well, yeah, all of those things are true, but doesn't that have a negative connotation to it? Like it's something I have to do, I need to do, I should do. Instead, why not say, I want to go get my children. I'm deciding to leave right now because I have this time to spend with them in the car, right? So that is a different way of saying the same thing. but it's the difference between the glass is half empty, right? Or the glass is half full. It's a blessing that I get to go pick up my children and that we're in the car together. And if I'm driving the car and my mindset is I should, I need, I have to, how present am I? How joyful am I? How much am I connecting with people, right? And there was another exercise I wanted to do, but I had to cut it out because it was just too long. But it was an exercise of listing how many times we say or do certain behaviors and using maybe Vaseline or soap to put on these glasses that I have, you know, and have you for every, you know, so many times you say it, you're going to put another couple dabs and then have the person next to you hold up a little index card and say what their core need is and something that's really important to them and see if you can actually see it. So that's what this does. When we cloud our vision with these shoulds and expectations, we're in a mode where we're not present. We're not connecting. Not only are we not able to see that card that that person held up, but we also can't share who we are truly. And what do people, if they're going to judge you on, what do they judge you on? On how you show up, right? Not necessarily what you say, but what you do. And so if you're not present and you're full of all these, you know, if I walked out of here, this morning was so frustrating and this happened and that happened. Am I really connecting with the guy shining the shoes down there? You're right, which is a blessing, right? So I'm on my soapbox, sorry.
Just real quick.
Yes.
You're on your way to pick the kids up and you're late and you're
Yes.
saying, oh, I could just, I'm so mad at myself for
Yes.
being late. What's some good self-talk that'll get you out of that negative mood?
Well, I use, and I did it this morning because I stopped at Dunkin' Donuts and they were understaffed and it took them 30 minutes to fill a box of coffee. So I got here late. So I'm driving here. I'm like, I've got my presentation. I've got my flash drive. I'm the presenter and I'm going to be the last one there. So there's a little exercise that I do, and it's called the 4 A's. So the first thing to process, because it's a real feeling, it's a real thing. The first thing is to acknowledge that you have the feeling. If you stuff feelings, it's going to come out somewhere else, and usually not where you want it to come out, right? The last, those phrases where they say that was the last straw on the camel's back, you don't want that to happen. And then the second A is to allow that feeling to happen. Just allow it to flow. Don't stop it. Don't say, oh, I shouldn't be feeling it. Should. There's another, So then you're just layering expectation over expectation. So acknowledge that you have it. Allow it to flow through. And then say, I can't think the 4th A, but basically the meaning of it is, what am I willing to do? What am I willing to act? What am I willing to do? I can't remember the A. And then the last one is to act on it. So what am I willing to do to de-escalate? So for me, it was positive self-talk, that I'm doing the best I can. I'm not in control over what happened in that situation. And I'm going to just deep breathe. These are things that I know for myself. And if you work with me, we'll come up with what your proactive behaviors are. But for myself is for example, breathing. So that's the thing that I knew I could commit to doing to de-escalate the feeling. So when those things come up, you don't want to stuff it. You want to actually give it the 4 A's and I'll get it to you if you guys want it, but the 4 A's to let that feeling process. So you're not holding on to it. When you do that, it frees you up to go on to the next thing. It freed me up to walk in here. And I was already like, could you imagine if I weren't doing this work and I was filled with expectations and I thought that I went to a different Dunkin' Donuts, that everything would run quick. I'd be here and my presentation would be up here. How many things didn't work well for me this morning, right? So by allowing, acknowledging, yes, these things happen. Yes, I'm stressed about it. allowing it to follow through, being willing to do things that are going to support me and being centered, and then act on them. I was able to walk in, and hopefully I'm doing a good job, but I was able to, make connection and share what I know instead of being all wrapped up in the expectations.
Mary Lou, one of the
Yes.
things I can see when she said it kind of flows through, is you kind of like get rid of it.
Yes,
And all of a sudden is that it doesn't continue to be with you. Oh, man,
That's
I'm
true.
gonna-
Yeah.
Yes.
Constantly. Wow, I like that idea. Let it flow through and get the.
identify it, acknowledge it, allow it to flow through, decide what you can do about it to make yourself centered, and then do those things. That's basically a way to give it wings and have it just fly. It doesn't, some people get a little confused or worried that if they don't hold on to something negative, that's a free pass. I'm here to tell you, and you need to do some work, maybe work with me to understand why I'm saying this. It's a lot more detailed, but it doesn't, holding on. And I said one of the behaviors is of someone who's centered on expectations is holding on to a goal no matter what, holding on to whatever it is, no matter what, no matter how hard it is, I'm going to push through. Well, there is another way. There is another way. And just by letting go, what do they say? Like, if you hold sand in your hand and you're really trying to hold on to as much as possible, the tighter you grasp that sand, the more that just comes out of your hand, and it has the opposite effect. So I can't go into detail this morning, but that really is true. And you do not have to be pushing yourself to accomplish something. There is another way. And this is one of the steps, is to switch or recognize that you have expectations, switch it over to intentions, and change the wording and how you approach things. So more of an inner focus, your intuition and your intention is guiding you, rather than the outside world. So, the presentation is the outside world. I don't have control over that. Okay.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
Well, I understand here, my mind focus, I'm listening to that. I think earlier I said something.
I hear a butt coming.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
I hear I'm drum rolling for your butt. Yeah.
You're right. And see, that's what been my mind is focused is how I can right now to move that away
Mhm.
and allow a client, a customer
Mhm.
to express themselves.
Yes.
Listen to the whole detail
Yes.
before I answer.
Yes.
That's what I'm picking.
One of the behaviors of someone that's in expectations is impatience and
Mhm.
not being connected to the person and not listening, but rather formulating what they're about to say next.
Yes.
Because your expectation is, I want the sale, I want the end result. And so the anxiety of what you want to be the end, it's tied to the result. Now, if your intention walking in there was different, like so the exercise that we're going to do next, and I only have 1 minute or less than a minute, was to convert some of the things. And I'm going to say it so that you can think about it, even when I answer your question, is those behaviors or those things that are happening that were in that first column that you wrote, the things that people are doing or saying to you, that person. How can you shift? Because when you're in intention, you're in control. You're in control of how you show up, how you feel, how you react. When you're in expectation, outside world is controlling. If you get a flat tire, it ruins your day. If the presentation doesn't show up, if the person doesn't buy the product, right? Or you feel like, they're not getting you because that was your end result. So that's where I'm saying the exercise is to think about, how can I be more in intention when I'm dealing with this person? And that's going to be the key to having a lot more calm and peaceful family gathering. And the same is true for your customer.
Just a question.
Yes.
Can I read this just for my?
Sure.
So the first one, the block that I filled out, I won't mention the person's name, but she's very negative on any type of suggestions and feels they're unimportant. But she discourages opinion that do not align with her by frowning or rolling her eyes out there.
Mhm. Yes.
Not me.
Oh, I know that. Half of my clients would never want to see her if that was the case.
No, but anyway, otherwise, if it was my wife, you guys all that write life insurance better off that policy.
So if I were you, for example, and wanting to counteract that, my intention would be, I'm going to show up as the best me, and I'm going to be an example for how I'd like the other person to react.
All right, fair enough.
If every time you get frustrated that they're making a reaction, if you repeat what your intent, I have intentions for meetings, I have intentions for the week, I have intentions for life. So they're the go-to thing when something happens where I can go back and say, well, my intention was to be present. So am I successful? Yes. And it's not about lowering the bar by any means. It's just about being more evolved and being aware that you have control over the relationship. You can take control back. They don't have to be by their actions or inactions or how they talk to you. Control how you react. Yes.
Do you want to give a plug to your Fearless Living program?
Sure. I have been a senior care professional for the last 10 years. But I have been a student of Fearless Living for over 20 years. And last year, I decided finally to become a certified coach. I really just wanted to share things that I got into it for my children. I wanted to show up differently as a different parent. Not that I don't love my parents, but everybody has issues with their parents. So I just wanted to be a different parent, and I didn't know a different way. And this has been the key to that. And my children have flourished, not because of me, but I wasn't in their way. Let's put it that way. So I do book groups from time to time. I take private clients. I only have a very short list because I'm a very busy care professional. And I do have an event coming up in January, which I'll be sharing with you all shortly. We have a meeting today to finish planning it. Thank you very much.
Well, how many influences did that have on all of us, about the things that we can do and change? When it comes to Talk Shop, it's always wonderful to go through the months and the years, etc., how much we learn by being a member of Talk Shop and the things that we can share with each other. I mean, look around the relationships that we have formed through the years